A little bit over a month ago, I covered a miniature bottle of a independent bottling of Ben Nevis 10-year-old. It was part of the Signatory unchill-filtered collection. It was 46% natural colour, non-chill-filtered, all those lovely things that we like to see. And I put the review up and I'd spread it around on the internet a little bit because I'm a fiend like that. And somebody from the distillery actually watched it and got in touch to say, would you like a bottle? I can get a bottle to you. Now, I'll quickly say as well, this wasn't a freebie, this was a we've got some, I can sell some to you kind of a situation. And I can't remember the last time that I saw Ben Nevis 10 for sale anywhere. It's very limited. It's difficult to get your hands on. And as a consequence of that, as with a lot of things with whiskey where it's anything other than really readily available, the prices tend to creep up a little bit. It was a bit of an unusual circumstance with this, where I was like transferring money to somebody. You know, in my head I was kind of like, is this above board? This feels like it's kind of not above board. But as it turned out, everything was absolutely fine. But there's always that like little itch in the back of your head, isn't there? It's like, this seems a little bit odd. But as it turns out, maybe do as I say, not as I do on that particular instance. But I was keen to get my hands on it. And I did, and the bottle is here, and I did not pay too much for it as well. I did not go kind of like, oh yeah, 100 quid, that sounds nowhere near that much. It was pretty much the RRP, really. Actually, it was the RRP because it's from the distillery. So here it is, Ben Nevis 10. I'm going to take the box down now because I know that there's a lot of glare coming off of the lamp because it's a beige one. I'm actually using this to store spare Lego bricks. I had to put together, well, I had to reconstruct a project of mine recently, and I seem to have a few spares left over, which is always the way with these things, isn't it? But we'll come back to it because there's a fair bit of McGubbins on the back, and we'll be talking a little bit about their approach to branding as well at some point. Now, I poured this a little while ago. I've actually been getting to know this whiskey for a couple of weeks now because sometimes I get a bit of criticism for doing a pour straight out of a bottle and calling it blind. I'm willing to change it up every now and then. Obviously, that's not always possible because I do get a lot of these sample bottles in as well because I'm not made of money. But in this particular instance, we've got a full bottle, and I've had a few drags out of it. You know, it's been well on its way. And so far, I'm pleased to report I've been thoroughly enjoying it. And I can confirm that this distillery does indeed have a very distinctive signature. When I was talking in the other review, I was talking about it having quite a sourdoughy Geneva kind of a character, really malt, bready, grainy, rich kind of a flavour. And this has it in spades as well. It's interesting to compare the two more from memory than anything else, because I have finished off that little sample I had because A, there wasn't much of it, and B, it was quite nice. And there'll be a card to that review as well if you want to have a look at that. Interesting to kind of note the similarities and the differences, and I'm seeing more similarities than differences. I've tried to do a little bit of research about how the expression is bottled, and the general consensus seems to be that it has been coloured, but not chill-filtered, which is an unusual way of doing it. I think I've gotten that the right way around. There is no information on the box or the bottle, so it's a bit of a tricky one to call. It might be that somebody from the distillery gets in touch with me and says, actually, we don't do either, in which case, amazing. But pro tip, put it on the bottle. It's quite a niche bottling to start with. It's not one of those ones where, you know, it's not a consumer product. It's sort of a whiskey fanboy kind of a product, and I think Ben Nevis are well aware of that. A lot of the stocks are currently going into Japanese whiskies. They don't ever land in this bottling, which I think is a shame, because this is something quite different. It's something to break out. I think it'll make quite an interesting gift as well. But I should actually get on with the whiskey, and we'll talk a little bit more about kind of like, you know, branding decisions and all that lot, because I have a disagreement with St. Ralphie. Not like a full-blown row, it's a very minor point of, I'm not quite sure I agree with that kind of a thing. It's not, I could go down the kind of like clickbait thing and just like, I don't think Ralphie's right, and have like a thumbnail that's like, or something like that, and probably still nobody would watch it. But I mean, you know, I'm not going to do that because I'm not Hello Magazine, so I've put this in my fancy glass that name escapes me, the Norland glass, there we are. They're cute little glasses, they're fun for showing off. You kind of feel like a whiskey drinker in Star Trek, if it weren't for the fact that they drank synthahol. So if anyone ever needed to see that Seedlip has a future, it certainly does in that universe, and everyone agrees in that universe, it's still not great. Ooh. You've still got that wonderful grain-rich kind of Geneva bite to it, but it is tempered with a bit of caramel this time, so it's a sweeter nose. But it's still got these wonderful kind of like collection of sort of your dad's shed. You know, so there's like WD-40, a little bit of like a rusty bandsaw in there as well, sawdust, damp, maybe like felt from the roof, that kind of a thing. It's a really grungy industrial scent that you get off it. A bit of petrichor as well, like dust in the rain. We all know that word because of The Doctor's Wife. It was an episode about 10 years ago in Doctor Who. Jesus, that was 10 years ago. Holy sure. Saran Jones is a cracking actor, by the way. There's something a little bit saline about it as well, almost like the rind on a gammon. I mean like an actual slice of meat, not like a conservative political commentator or something. It does have like a briny element to it. There's an element of like sandalwood in there as well. There's something quite, I hate using the term masculine for scents. It's the kind of scent that people box into masculine. You can smell like anything and still be masculine. I think vanilla is a very masculine scent. I think that more men should wear vanilla because it smells great. I think we can all agree on that point. Yeah, and it's a little bit, as it's developing as well on the nose, there's a little bit kind of like fresh cut grass as well. There's loads going on. There is loads going on. Every time I'm nosing it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a bit more actually. And I'm going to stick Jacob's cream crackers in there, just because, but it is reminding me again of like that kind of like dry, bready, baked kind of an element to it. To taste it, there's like a wonderful rye loaf note about it. And I mentioned the last time that I covered Ben Nevis that there was a Caramac influence, and it's absolutely here as well. This is where we start to see similarities between the other one and that kind of like distillery signature coming through. So on the nose you've got a lot of those like grainy, Jennifer-like notes, and in the flavour you've got a lot of that like caramel, white chocolate, Caramac-y kind of an element as well. As it matures, it becomes a little bit more kind of like red currant jelly, almost. There's like a strange fruitiness mellowing in with the kind of creamy caramel, and there's a savoury component to it as well. It's reminding me a bit of like maple roasted pecans. Really specific, I know. And there is like this strange, slightly oily, savoury tang towards the finish. It's almost a little bit coppery in a way. It's a little bit kind of like bitter, sweet and sour. It's herbal. It's reminding me of sage. That's what it is. There's something sagey about it. Kind of like sage and onion stuffing. With like a juniper bitteriness as well. Bitteriness? Bitterness. Words are all over the place at the minute. I'm enjoying this whiskey so much I've forgotten the power of speech. That also wasn't a sentence. Jesus Christ. It's a very different whiskey. I think it's one for, if you're a fan of like your Springbanks or something like that, something that's got a bit of funk and a bit of character to it. I think that's part of the reason why Ben Nevis has found so many fans. Pop a little bit of water in this. There we go. I'll pop that up there for now. We can always add, we cannot take away. Well, unless they're benefits, I suppose, but really should stop talking politics on here, but more of this like wonderful rich caramel is coming through now. The Geneva's taken a back seat and it's become more bready, malty. It's almost kind of like it is reminding me of something, but it's really specific. There's a bakery in Edinburgh, well, it's a chain of bakeries now called 12 Triangles. Their bakery recently burnt down, which is an absolute tragedy. One, because they're a small business, and two, because they have some fucking good sourdough. So they're currently kind of out of action at the minute. I think they can open one store, and it's like miles away from me, which not surprising, but it's also a shame because I can't buy their lovely bread at the minute. But they do these they're like gingerbread muffins with it's not even a peanut brittle. I don't really know how to describe it. It's like some kind of nut glass in a cream cheese frosting. It's reminding me a lot of that. It's like nuts and caramel and cream cheese and ginger. It's reminding me of all those things, and coming together, it's reminding me of that muffin. Man, I really hope they get back on their feet soon, because, oh, they're great. The flavour with the addition of water becomes sweet. It's much richer. The Caramac kind of takes a sidestep to more just kind of like a generic caramel flavour. It's sweet without being overbearingly sugary. It's kind of like a caramel if it's been left a little bit too long. It's not yet burnt, it's just gone a bit darker than maybe you'd intended, but you can still use it. And the herbal components kind of meld in with it. It's less standalone than it was before. The finish is a bit sweeter. There's still that kind of like juniper prickle. It's still got like a botanical edge on the finish, but the sweetness kind of carries it through. It's really quite fantastic whiskey. I think I'm going slow on this one because I know how difficult it is to get my hands on it. There is a cask strength version. I've been advised not to get it because it can run up to about £100, and that's it's, you know, over double the price of what the standard is. I'm sure it's lovely stuff, but at that money, it needs to be really good stuff, you know? I mean, that's the kind of price that you can expect to pay for, with a bit of extra change, a Glendronach 18, you know, and the world raves about that, so it has to really be good. And I just don't know if it could possibly live up to that. The finish is still there, and it's developing into something quite yeasty, in a good way. It's like, again, there's loads of like fresh baked bread, dough, rye components to this. It's a bakery in a glass, for want of a better way of putting it. A lot of my analogies have been baked or like constructed sweet goods in some way. It absolutely works. That's what this is. It's a bakery in a glass. And then I promised earlier on a big old fight between me and Ralph. It's not the cat. I doubt he even knows I exist. But yeah, Ralphie, in his decade-long crusade to bring whiskey to YouTube, and done it very successfully and very modestly, if I may say so myself, he makes a point about how the marketing on this needs to be updated a little bit, that the label and how it's presented look a little bit tired. I have to disagree. I really love the look of this bottle, and I think it's waited so long to be kind of zhuzhed up that it's almost kind of like bypassed being unfashionable and gone back to being fashionable again. Because a lot of distilleries are going back to this more kind of like plain, well, this is not quite plain, is it? But kind of like, I'm not quite sure how I'm trying to say this, but less art school approach to whiskey presentations. So you've got things like Altmore, Ben Riach, Ben Romac, Arran are another good example, you know, where they're going more kind of like understated. There's heraldry. I mean, there's foil on here as well, like the Ben Nevis and the orange and the red are all metallic. But then it's quite a plain craft beige label. You've got a black and white image of, the distillery, but it's shadowed a little bit by massive Scottish scenery, because, you know, you've got to have massive Scottish scenery. I like how it looks. I like that it's a bit classical and a bit, I don't know, just when I look at like old bottlings, I like the art on them because they're a bit more understated. There's a bit less crap on them, and I enjoy that. What does need to happen is, if it is unchill-filtered, if it is natural colour, they need to be stating it, because there is no statement of intent on here whatsoever. So that is a carry-on from, 10, 20 years ago, where people just couldn't care less. There were people that did care, but they were fewer in number. Low is the power of the internet. There is a big old story on the back and also on the box, and I think they mirror each other pretty much. Discerning, yeah, it's the same story, but on the back of this label it's had to be squished together, whereas here it's got a bit more space, so it looks bigger. Yeah, it's a lot of sort of waffle, but it does say it's a drinking by the discerning. I mean, you definitely have to be in the know, because it's difficult to find, if nothing else. You have to basically go on a treasure hunt for this stuff. I literally only managed to get my bottle because somebody from the distillery sold me one, which is nuts. Their website's been down for over a year now. I don't know what's... I think it shows Nika's view towards this bottling, which is, it's not that important. Don't care. We'd sooner ship it off and put it into our hyped up overpriced whiskey in Japan, which is a shame, because this is characterful, wonderful stuff. And if you are a fan of Japanese whiskey, do you know what? It might actually be worth phoning the distillery. Not a lot of people do that now, but it might actually be worth being like, do you have any bottles? Because they do. Because this was just sitting there. Literally, between me saying yes and it arriving wasn't that long. And I've been wanting one for ages. They made a sale like that. I didn't have to think about it. And I'm sure there's loads of other people that would like to see this bottle again. But hey ho, maybe they only have like a handful of bottles kicking around, or I don't quite know. But I do know that they're making another batch, because I got a bit of insider information, which was very nice. It was nice to kind of see sort of like some of the processes. I don't have like a full video or anything. I just got like a couple of photos and like a bit of spiel, so I can't go into that in full depth. But it was nice to see. It almost felt like, getting a little guided tour by myself. So that's kind of how you do a relationship with a customer. You make them feel a bit special. You treat them like your wife or your husband or your cocker spaniel. I don't know. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Ben Nevis. I like the branding. I need to know more information, and hopefully it'll be forthcoming. I do like this actually. There's this lovely dark wood cork stopper. It's really understated, but at the same time just really decorative and quite classical. And I like this weird greeny brown bottle colour as well. It bizarrely stands out from kind of how, how like in the 60s and 70s avocado sweets were a thing. And I don't mean sweets flavoured with avocado, I mean like avocado baths and toilets and sinks. That violently ugly green-brown colour that people thought looked nice. And then reality came crashing down and was like, you need a slap for putting that in your house. What are you doing? I quite like gaudy stuff. Even I think that's too far. Like, dear God, no. A pink bathroom? Fine, no issue with that. Blue bath? Great, go for it. Yellow? Whatever. Hideous, rotting avocado colour? What is wrong with you? The only excuse you have is if you are completely colourblind, or in fact just completely blind, and it was cheap. Because you don't have to look at it. Guests, unfortunate, but you don't have to look at it. It's your house. It's the only reason I can think of that you... Apparently they're coming back. Madness. Sign of the times. Absolute insanity. Ooh, I sound like Piers Morgan. Ooh, I'll have to exercise myself tonight. At least that's what I call it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thumb this video if you enjoyed it, and comment down below. Have you tried any Ben Nevis? Have you managed to get your hands on Ben Nevis? Do you work for Ben Nevis? Have I been nice to Ben Nevis? Ben Nevis. Subscribe to the channel if you like the rantings of a clearly insane man about bathrooms and other such things. Do you agree with me that this looks quite good, or do you agree with Ralphie? Let's start a war. Why not? Why not? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll start a real war. Scone. There we go. There'll be lots of people downstairs now battling it out about how that's pronounced. But anyway, once the smoke clears, do join me next time where I'll be drinking something else.